So I tell my friends now who are suffering with injury, in the middle, you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. You don't know it's going to get there. You don't know you're going to make it through. And nobody can tell you. I still can't tell my friends you're going to make it through because nobody can guarantee that it's going to get better. You just have to believe and hope and keep taking one step.
This is Running for Real, the podcast for runners who know that for every runner's high, there are just as many lows. All those just missed PRs, easy runs that feel hard, injury blues, and more. Each week, we'll talk to running, health, and wellness experts about their highs, lows, and best advice to build our confidence. Running for Real is about being honest, being brave, and most of all, not feeling alone. And now here's our host, Tina Muir.
Hello, my friends. Welcome to the Running for Real podcast, episode number 164. This is coming out on a bit of a strange day. This is a Thursday. We are bringing this one out a day early because I wanted to get both of these bonus episodes to you. Or I shouldn't say bonus. This one's a bonus. Tomorrow is just a regular episode, but they were live podcast recordings that I did in Sacramento, California at the CIM Expo. Now, I wanted to get them both to you pretty quick because, I know with a live show, obviously, the best way to see it is to be there in person. We're talking about some things that may be relevant to that race only. And if you are racing CIM, I definitely would save this one for a future time you are going. However, I was talking to someone the other day, and I was really trying to say that the biggest thing I try to do is that I try to relate everything to the people listening. And actually, it was Joe who I was guiding, who you're going to hear from in just a minute. Now, I remember it was him. I feel like most other podcasts, they like to give advice and they like to let you feel like you're kind of listening in on a conversation. However, I like these podcasts or my podcast to be kind of as if you are in that conversation. So I try to, say the things that you may be thinking, like the wait, but, or what if I think, whatever it may be. So I really try and bring you into the conversation as much as possible, try and cover those things that you may be wondering about. And so that is the reason that, these live shows, I still hope apply to everyone else. Now, today's episode was a Superstars live episode, and I was excited to focus on 3 people who are in the Superstars community and kind of share their stories, because you'll hear me introduce this in the intro, but we hear so often about elite runners and medical professionals and psychologists, and you see these people, but what about everyone else? So I hope you enjoy this one. I know you guys love the Superstars episodes that I usually do, so this one was a little bit different because everyone's interviewed together, but I really hope you enjoy this one. So we are going to be hearing from Janae Barron, Joe Retherford, and Charrissa Lynn. It was a wonderful conversation, and I really hope you enjoy this, although keep in mind this is a live recording, so the audio is never going to be quite as good as it would be in person when I'm doing it in a nice little confined space, but I hope you still enjoy it. We just want to take a moment to thank Body Health, and we'll be right to the episode. Thank you to Body Health for sponsoring this episode of the Running for Real podcast and for supporting me for all these years. You have heard me talking about Body Health Perfect Amino for probably 5 years now, and there is a reason for that. I truly believe in this company and Perfect Amino and what it does. And I have to say, recently when I was at the California International Marathon, there was a ton of you that came up to me and said how you had heard me talking about it all these years, probably pestering you, but you've decided to give it a go, and you were kind of shocked by the difference it made and how much better you feel. There were so many people that said that to me in person, and it was just so nice to hear, in addition to those of you who reach out to me. So if you are listening to this and you've been hearing me talking about it and you're wondering, I don't get it, like, how does it work? Like, what does it do that's so special? Well, I just want to kind of explain again, as it's been a little while since I've said this. So we all know that we need amino acids. They help with recovery. They kind of build our body up. We're breaking them down with training, and amino acids are what you need to build it back up. But what we don't often talk about or hear about is that only up to 48% of the food that we take in these protein sources is actually able to be utilized, I should say. The rest of it is converted to waste. So that's things like eggs are 48% of them are utilized, meat, poultry, and fish, 2% of it our body can utilize and turn into these amino acids. However, body health, 99% of it is utilized by the body. Only 1% has to be kind of removed and taken out as waste, which means that your body can get what it needs. It can help you to recover. I've really seen the difference in myself. As I've said so many times, as an elite runner, I trained using this. I really noticed the difference when I missed it for a few days. And now I take it just to kind of help my body recover with all the other things I'm throwing at it. So it really helps with that too. It contains the 8 essential amino acids the body needs to support and maintain its muscular, skeletal, enzymatic, that's such a hard word to say, and hormonal systems. So you've heard me talking about it. So go give it a try. Go to tinamuir.com/aminos. That's AMINOS. tinamuir.com/aminos, and go into 2020 right. Come on, let's set you up so that you can succeed and you can recover, because if you are healthy and staying healthy, then you are going to have the races that you want. You can give yourself the best chance to succeed. So go get some. tinamuir.com/aminos.
All right, pleasant good afternoon. CIM Expo 2019 at the old home of the Sacramento Kings. We are Sleep Train Arena. Tomorrow, such a big day, right? California International Marathon. Are you guys excited? Yes? Okay, very good. Just a simple nod is fine, because I like to say you're kind of starting to get into that zone, right? And I can only imagine what it feels like. I will be your race announcer. I will be at the start line and the finish line. My name is Steve Buzzard, and so I am very excited to be a part of it in that way. So I'm not running, but I am there for you because I realize the work that you put in is very important. And you've done a lot to get to tomorrow. And of course, I want to see you at the finish line, and I want to be able to say your name. I'm going to say as many names as I possibly can. If I say your entire name, that is a great day, okay? If I only say your first name, consider that a win, because at least I got your name in. And if I don't say your name, please do not take it personal. So a lot of people say, how do you know all the names? Well, I have a laptop in front of me, and when you cross a certain portion of before the finish line, your name pops up. Now, one thing I did learn, and this is kind of funny, is that it says your name, it says where you're from. So that's kind of cool in the CIM, because we have people from all over the place, and it says your age. So I thought, okay, I'm supposed to read everything. Well, I found out I was starting to get glares from women. They're like, yeah, you don't need to say my age. Don't say it. So that's one thing I learned in the first year. Don't say the age of women. You're all 21. It's all good. Okay, so we are up here on the main stage, and we've got a Running for Real podcast. She was here yesterday, did an awesome job. Talked to some great runners, Max King, along with James. Forgot the last name, but he was awesome. Yes, and so Tina Muir is going to be coming on up. She is British. And I don't know. I know she's got a lot of followers, but she's got 3 great guests we're going to bring up. It's going to be like TED Talk. Let's give it up for Tina Muir, everybody.
Well, thank you all for coming to sit with us. I know that you should really be putting your legs up in the air at this point, trying to rest, but I appreciate you joining us here. And this is exciting. So I'm going to bring my guests on one at a time. First, I would like to introduce Janae Barron. Janae has a 2:49 marathon PR. She's going for an Olympic trials qualifier tomorrow, not to put any pressure on you or anything. You may also recognize Janae. She has an incredibly popular blog, Hungry Runner Girls, and I'm sure probably most of this audience right now are here because of you. Everyone loves you. And Janae is also a mum and a stepmom and just a wonderful person. You're going to love her. All right, next, I'm excited to bring on Charrissa Lynn. Charrissa has a PR of 3:37. She's done all the world marathon majors. She has quite a story. You're going to hear about it today. And she's just come such a long way in her running. So I'm really excited to bring her on the show today. And finally, I am absolutely honored to bring on, tomorrow I'm actually being a guide. I will be a guide for Joe, who is coming on the stage right now, Joe Retherford. This is his first marathon. Any other first-time marathoners tomorrow? We have a few, yeah. So we're going to be talking about some things that he's learned, how exciting this is for him, and maybe you two experienced marathoners here can give Joe some advice. So I'm honored to be running with Joe tomorrow through the first half of his first marathon. Now, this podcast today, I wanted to make this about you guys, about everyone out here. I mean, people often think that podcasts are about, essentially running professionals or running experts or running whatever, like psychologists, anything who is someone who's kind of put on a pedestal. But what you guys out there and these three here don't really get the recognition for is that you're putting in the work, you're doing everything that everyone else is doing. You're working damn hard, but you're also fitting it in around a family and a full-time job and all these other obligations. So I kind of want to celebrate you guys today, give back to this community. And those of you who know, I do have a community called Superstars. So I wanted to kind of make this a Superstars focused episode, which is just basically all of you guys out there, all those people walking around the expo over there that can't hear us, because I admire you guys as much as, you may look at the top level people and think they are amazing for what they do. All right, so Janae, you started with your first marathon being a 3:20, which is a pretty impressive first marathon debut. But, at that point, even when you started running, we're going to start today with some kind of struggles that these three have been through and what they've overcome to be here. So Janae, you had, everyone has their difficulties. Every single person here has overcome something to be here right now. But that first 3:20 marathon, as amazing as that was, there was maybe something going on underneath that was kind of maybe propelling you to start trying marathons. But tell us about some of the hard things that were going on that running was bringing you comfort for.
Right. So I really turned to running for a lot of reasons. And one thing I loved about it was the control that I could get from it. I loved being able to control my paces, the races I did, all those sorts of things, because I was struggling with an eating disorder and I was really underweight. I was borderline osteoporosis at the age of 26. So I was really struggling. And I ran my 3:20, and then I ran a 3:08, and then I ran a 3:04. And then I found myself in the sports med doctor's office because I had 2 femoral stress fractures. And that was my wake-up call. That is when I realized I had to start giving my body the nourishment it needed, the rest it needed, and I started taking rest days all the time. I started eating a lot more. I was able to get my period back, and then I got pregnant with my first daughter, and I think pregnancy is what really turned things around for me when I realized it wasn't all about me all the time. And so that was a challenge that I needed to go through, and I needed to learn and experience and hopefully come out stronger because of. And it's amazing how much faster I've gotten from eating a lot more food.
And I think many of us can kind of, relate to Janae's story. I know those of you that know me know I certainly relate to her story. But I think, Janae mentioned about the control. We as runners love our control, and it does become a sport that you can control. And we're well known for kind of running the extra 3 laps up and down the driveway just to make sure you get to the 0-0 on your watch. And, Janae mentioning about the eating thing, that's obviously a very common and important topic that's being brought up right now, which is why I wanted to bring that up with Janae, because, she has come out the other side of this, and she has gone through some struggles. And I think all of us have had some kind of bad relationship with food at some point, and we've come out the other side of this. So I really applaud Janae for not only kind of making her way to a healthy point, but also for kind of setting an example, not being afraid to talk about it. And on that note, Janae, I've had plenty of people come up to me and say thank you for speaking out about things. Why is it important for everyone out here to it's easy for us to just say, look at what I did today. It was so much fun. Everything is going so well. But why is it important for us also to, even if it's not with the public on a website or on a social media platform, why is it important to share with someone, with a loved one, with a therapist, with someone, if you are having kind of a tough time in something related to running or not?
Well, I think it helps us, even if you and I can't relate on having a food struggle, maybe a different type of addiction or a different type of form of control that you just sought after to the point of where I went in my life. And so I think it's just important that we relate and open up with each other. So maybe it might not be the same topic we're struggling with, but we can see that we've both been in dark places before and that we can come out of it.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. All right, so Charrissa, when I asked, so for those of you in the audience, I asked my audience, whoever's racing CIM, tell me, a bit about you, and I'd love to, feature a few of you on the show on this day to celebrate everyone out there. Now, Charrissa sent me this amazing storyline with the beginning, the conflict, and the end. So we'll get to her conflict in a minute. But firstly, one thing that struck me about Charrissa is that she said in this thing that she, as an Asian American, she always felt as a child and growing up as a teenager that she was never going to be an athlete. Her strong suit was violin, was piano, was academics. And not because she hadn't tried running, but because that's just, I'm just not kind of athletic. But eventually she tried it and she's here right now and has improved a lot. So Charrissa, tell us about kind of these internal voices that tell us we can't do something when actually, if you give it a try, like in your situation, you can actually do really well.
I definitely have surprised myself over the years, and I hear my friends say the same things. They're like, I'm not a real runner. Or, when are you going to hang out with your fast friends? I'm like, I don't have fast friends. I just have friends. Some are faster, some are slower. But I never thought of myself as an athlete. And I was telling Tina ahead of time that for me, qualifying for Boston was this major goal. I had gone to school. I went to MIT, of course, as any good Asian American would go. Went to MIT for many years, got my PhD, watched the marathon religiously every single year. I'd walk across the river, watch the elites. Never once thought I could ever run a marathon. Never once thought I would run Boston. And then just the idea of qualifying for Boston was incredible. And when I was able to finally do it, it took me a little while, I think that was when I finally could say, without hesitating, I'm an athlete. I'm an athlete and I can. And I have to say, my husband's sitting in front. This is actually, I think, after we won a national championship in curling. So I guess I don't consider curling real athleticism.
Wait. You two won a national...
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that? How did we not know about this until now?
There was too much to write in the email. So we used to compete in curling. We don't anymore. We don't live in a place that curls. But we did win a championship in curling, and I still didn't think of myself as an athlete because it's not super athletic. And then I qualified for Boston, and that was my turning point.
Wow. So even that, you weren't an athlete at that point?
Not really.
Oh, okay.
But I'm still very terrible at anything that requires hand-eye coordination. That's not my, like shooting a basketball. Yeah, that's
You're not terrible. You're working on it.
I'm actually not working on it.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll let you off that. But thank you so much. And what would you like to remind anyone out there who maybe is in a similar situation? Maybe it's not, their heritage or their culture, but maybe it's something else that makes them feel like, they're not a real runner, or that they, even tomorrow, maybe, it can be scary on the start line thinking, I don't deserve to be here. I haven't done enough to be here. What would you like to remind them?
I think the thing about running that's amazing is that just about everybody can do it. And maybe a marathon is too far to think about right now, but I really think a half marathon, just about everybody in the world can go out there and get themselves to the finish line of that half marathon. And it's an incredible feeling. You've done Run Disney. I love Run Disney. The reason I love Run Disney is because it encourages people who might otherwise have not thought of themselves as athletes to go out there and do something incredible. And the energy is so positive. It just feels amazing to be out there with all those people. And so I guess it's just put one foot in front of the other and get out there.
Okay, thank you for that. All right, Joe, turning to you, we've said this is your first marathon. I'm sorry to keep mentioning this. I'm probably making it even more scary for you every second. But, you started running with your sister who's sitting here in the audience. And was any part of, starting to run as a runner with visual impairments, was any part of you or your loved ones kind of worried about that? I've had some people on my show with visual impairments or some other disabilities, and they've really said that it's not so much them that's scared, it's everyone around them padding them in cotton wool. I don't want you to leave the house and things like that. So how did you overcome, that part of it? And were you yourself kind of scared to get running? Because, obviously without a lot of your sight, there's a lot of real danger that you could get in very quickly.
Well, you should really be worried about her. On our first run, we went out for a little 4 miles. She was training for a half marathon at that point. But it was after dinner and asked if I wanted to go with. And it was already dark, so I I couldn't see anything. It was just pitch black. So I trusted her. I just followed her cues. She would tell me about the routes and the curbs and whatever. But she was so focused on that she went down. So the blind guy stayed up, but the sighted sister went down and she got hurt. But yes, they just wonder like how blind people could do it. But the guides, you just have a real good communication with you and your guide, and they'll tell you when the curbs, and if you trust them, then it shouldn't be an issue.
Okay, and that is really good to hear, and hopefully by the end of tomorrow you still trust me, because I'm a little bit nervous about this.
I've fallen down many times. It's okay.
Okay, I guess if you've fallen a lot, then maybe if you fell tomorrow, then I could somehow say that it wasn't my fault, even though it totally would be.
The trick is just to get up before you get too sore and too stiff. Start running again.
Okay, that's probably good advice for most of us, because how many people here have fallen in the winter on some ice? I definitely have many a time. And I was talking to Joe before the show that we have our like battle wounds of scars from running, that most normal people will be like, what did you do? And you're like, oh, I just fell over running. Like, no big deal. All right, so Joe, you said to me a few weeks ago that your challenges have kind of brought more rewards to you. So maybe you could explain what you mean by that. Like, you know, it could be easy for someone in the audience to think like, you know, how could that bring you more rewards? Surely there's, you know, so many things that you have to think about and so many things that become a lot more difficult. So tell us about some of the like extra rewards that you feel as someone with a visual impairment.
It's just the sense of accomplishment. Like, I've gone through so many injuries. I've rolled my ankle off of different curbs or anything. Sometimes the dirt path looks like the same color as the like sidewalk or whatever. So I rolled my ankle and I'm out a couple weeks. But when I actually get to the race and I cross the finish line, it's just such a sense of accomplishment that I didn't know I could run 20 miles, but I went and I didn't stop and I went through the finish line. So it's just that sense of accomplishment becomes that much greater when you're having your feet up on the couch and you can't run because it was taken away from you, kind of thing.
And I think most people listening can resonate with that. Will you tell us about the moment you decided to do a marathon?
It actually happened last year at the CIM. I did a 2-person relay, and I just got caught up in all the excitement of all the people around and all the atmosphere of everything that I was like, I want to do the whole thing. So I took that whole year of training from last year to this point, and I went from running 45, 50 miles a month to 45, 50 miles a week pretty comfortably. And I lost 30 pounds since then, and I'm just really excited for the challenge tomorrow.
Yeah, well, we're all excited for you. All right, so I want to talk next about kind of balance. This is another topic that we all feel like we don't do very well, but it's something that you kind of have to be able to do to train for a marathon. You have to be able to move other things around. You have to be able to fit things into your life. And Janae, you are one of these people who just seems to have it perfect. You seem to be able to split your family, your running, your career, all these other like generous things that you do in your life. And maybe that is the case, maybe it's not, but I'd love for you to tell us about either now or kind of a time in the past where you really struggled to kind of find that balance of getting your running in, but also keeping, you know, your relationships going, keeping your job going, like whatever it may be.
Awesome. Okay, so this is my 13th marathon, and I finally have figured out the key. And the key is to realize marathon training is a short season, so let go of balance. Hire a cleaner if you need to. Don't do the laundry for a long time. Drive through Chipotle more often. Right now, when you're training so hard for a race, you kind of just have to let go of balance. Keep the important things there, whether that's your spiritual health, your relationships, and obviously your physical health, going to bed in good time while you're training. But I've really realized I just have to let go of that control and the thought that I can do it all, because as far as like work goes, the last few months, I've dropped the ball with a lot of things. But I mean, my training's there and my family's happy and my relationships are great. So I consider that a win. And, you know, you just have to let the rest kind of just slide a little bit.
I think that's good advice. And as we said about control earlier, runners like to think that we can control everything and handle everything at the same time. And it's not always the case. Just going into my second trimester of pregnancy, I definitely did not handle anything very well the last few months. But I'm looking forward to actually being able to relax now. I have managed to let go of this pressure, and it does make a big difference. So to those of you out there as well, remind yourself of that when you are feeling like everyone else seems to have it together, that they have struggles, but then they've also learned to let go as well. All right, Charrissa, I want to talk about your physical setbacks here. Because there have been a few. We said you started running, and you kind of started running twice with the first race you did, and then starting it again kind of in your 40s. But you had a pretty bad fall at one point that could have, really changed the way you view running, maybe even made you consider whether you could run again because of kind of the damage you had. So tell us about what happened there and how you kind of got through it.
Sure. So, as I mentioned, I was trying to qualify for Boston. The very first time I tried, I came up short. I was 5 minutes long. It was a humid day. And a friend of mine said, I had done a program that didn't have that many miles. And she said, I think you need more miles on your body. So then I said, okay, fine. I would want a higher mileage plan. I did 6 months, 700 miles. I went, got my nutrition in order. I was in the best shape of my life. I was ready to go. And I signed up for I was running a marathon. And it's not a trail marathon, but it was run on some dirt paths. I very distinctly remember I was on my pace, and at that point you needed to qualify by more than 5 minutes, right? Because otherwise you wouldn't get in. So I was on pace 5 minutes faster than my qualifying time. I remember thinking the next mile marker is going to be 20, and all I have is 10K to go. I'm going to get this. I'm totally ready. I'm going to do this. And then I fell at 19.6. And I know this exactly, which is every runner should know this. I stopped my Garmin. Of course, I stopped my Garmin. I didn't know what happened. All I knew was that all of a sudden my face was heading towards these rocks on the ground, and I must not have gotten my hands out in time because basically my face took the brunt of the fall, and I rolled over. And all I remember was this woman who very kindly stopped, and she said, "Are you okay?" And I thought, oh my God, I don't know if I'm okay or not. And there was blood filling my mouth, and I was a mess. And this volunteer came over, which was great, and they took me off on a gator, and they took me to the ER. And my husband was waiting at 22 and never saw me come by, so that was kind of sad. But I fractured my nose in 3 places, and I had horrible road rash on my face. And they did a CAT scan because they wanted to understand, why did I not put my hands out? Why didn't I get my hands out? Did I have a brain tumor? Which I didn't. As far as I know, they didn't check it. And I remember crying, and just crying and crying and crying, partly because I was injured, partly because I had spent so much time trying for this goal, and it was gone. And not only was it gone, I couldn't go out next week and do it. I couldn't go out next month and do it. I had to try and figure out if I could do it again ever. When I started running again, of course, like an idiot, like most runners, I went out the next week and ran a 5K because I was the fittest I was ever in my life, and I didn't want to lose that fitness. And I didn't run normally. I couldn't run. My style was all weird, and I saw a counselor, and she's like, it makes sense. She goes, your body is trying to protect you. It doesn't know what happened. All it knows is you were running, and then something very bad happened, and you fell, and you smashed your face up. And so it's not going to let you run normally for some time. And it was really, really hard to come back from that. And definitely in the middle of it, I thought, I may never be the runner I was, and I may never get to go to where I wanted to go to. And so I tell my friends now who are suffering with injury, in the middle, you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. You don't know it's going to get there. You don't know you're going to make it through. And the thing is, nobody can tell you. Even now, I still can't tell my friends you're going to make it through, because nobody can guarantee that it's going to get better. You just have to believe and hope and keep taking one step. And eventually, about 9 months later, I did finally qualify. And actually, I have this thing where I feel like someone was trying to get me to not run Boston, because I had signed up for Grandma's, and I was supposed to fly there the day before, and my flight was delayed, wasn't going to get there. Finally, the last flight, I get in there, and we get in at 11, and the bus leaves at 4 in the morning, and when I get to the start line, I'm, damn it, I'm finally here. I'm going to run this damn race. And so I had a huge PR, so I did qualify. But then the week before Boston, 10 days before Boston, I got a kidney infection. It was just horrible. It was I swear to God, somebody doesn't want me to run Boston. But now I've run Boston 3 times. It's all good. But I think the most recent thing is that I had a herniated disc, a really bad herniated disc that I got in March, right after Tokyo. And if you've never had sciatic pain due to herniated disc, you'd never want it. It is the worst pain I've ever felt in my life. Anybody I know who has it, I feel bad for them. You can't sit, you can't stand. All I could do was lie down. I had a yoga mat in my office trying to get work done because I was trying to work while lying down. And so this is my big comeback. I canceled all my races for the summer, and I've just been trying to slowly build up. And here I am, and I'm pretty healthy. I think I'm ready to go. I'm hoping it's all going to work out, and I'm looking forward to tomorrow. So.
And that is exactly the reason I wanted, you, Charrissa, to share this with you, because, maybe you haven't had a fall that, caused you so much stress that your brain kind of was your body was trying to protect your brain, but I'm sure you've had things go wrong. I'm sure you've had things that have come up that you didn't expect, and they always come in the moment you don't expect. Like Charrissa said, where it happens, when it happens, meant that she couldn't go back next week and do it. So, just remember out there tomorrow, if you do get to a moment where you don't think you can even make it to the finish line, where you're, even if it kind of happens quite early, you're mile 12 and you're still feeling bad because you've been feeling bad since the start, that doesn't mean in a mile things won't turn around. So, Charissa's story is great for kind of showing that just persevere, just trust, just be patient with yourself tomorrow and in all your training, and things will kind of work out. And if you are determined to get there, like she was with Boston, you will. So you'll find a way. All right, Joe, with you, one of the things that you told me is if you don't have a guide to run with, which actually, being set up with Joe to do this tomorrow, I've kind of been learning a lot about running as a visually impaired athlete. And, if you think about it, most of us take this for granted, that if someone like Joe wants to go out on a run, he can't just say, I'm gonna head out and go. He needs either a guide to run with him, and this is training runs too, not just races, but training runs too. But you do a lot of your runs on a 2-mile loop, and you've already told us that you have had quite a few falls. You also told me you've had some near misses with children and dogs, which are things that if you think about it, that makes sense. But I'm sure some of us have had some. I know I've definitely had issues with dogs chasing me or running into me, so that one there. But tell us about some of the things that you have to remind yourself when you are training, to kind of remind yourself that this is worthwhile and this is something important to you.
Yeah, so when I can run on that 2-mile loop, and I know that I could do it by myself, and I just have to follow right in the middle of the path, and it's clear enough that I could do it unless there's loose dogs without leashes. But when I find that kind of struggle, that I'm so bored of this loop, I just remind myself that I can run. Because I can't run on a treadmill, but I can run by myself on this. I have a very small field of vision, so I just have to try and stay in the center of that path, but I know where the cutouts are or whatever, and I'm not crossing like busy streets or anything like that. So I just remind myself that I have this ability that I can run by myself still. I have to completely stop my momentum and turn around and keep going and things like that. And then when I do my hills, I go over to this overpass and I just go up and over and back and turn around. And then it's only like 0.2 miles. So I just have to keep going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. But it's so liberating when I actually get to the race and I actually just get to go straight the whole way.
Yeah, I bet. And you've definitely built yourself some mental toughness going back and forth on a 0.2 mile hill and a 2-mile loop that you do for most of your runs. And tell us about the help that you do get. United in Stride is what brought me here to do this with Joe. But tell us about like how important it is to have guides, and what people listening, not just sitting here today, but when this comes out as a show, what can they do if they want to kind of give back and be a guide for someone?
Definitely. There's United in Stride, like you said, and then there's also different Achilles chapters around. One of your podcasts was with some people from New York with the Achilles, but there's different little local chapters all over the country. So you could just search for Achilles International, I think that's what it's called. And then you can see if there's a local chapter around, and then they're always looking for volunteers. And it's just a really low-key, let's go for a run on a Saturday afternoon kind of thing. But if you are training for a race, they will offer up more volunteers I'm talking as a blind person, that they will offer up other volunteers for you to train for that. So if you want to get in some other runs during the week, they'll try and accommodate that, and especially having the sighted guides, it makes it that much easier when they have a bigger pool of people they could pull from.
Yep. And again, United in Stride, if you can register anywhere in the country, you can sign up in your city, and that means even if there's no one there right now, let's say someone moves there, you are in the system, and they can find you. So I would definitely encourage it. It's very rewarding to do. And Joe, did you ever struggle, kind of feeling like you were part of the running community? Charrissa mentioned about being a real runner, and a lot of us struggle with kind of the feeling of not being enough, not doing enough. How did you struggle with that? And if you did, how did you allow yourself to say, I've worked really hard to be here, I'm ready to run 26.2 miles tomorrow? Did you give yourself that kindness?
I'm going to tell the line tomorrow's about to run, and I still don't feel like a runner. So I'm still always going to feel like I'm not as fast, not as good enough, but I can run. So I don't know how to deal with that. I just know that running makes me feel good, and I'm going to feel good after this race, after this run, whatever it is. And that's all I kind of remind myself and try and pull back that it's just good for me.
Yep. And I just want to say on behalf of everyone out here that you are 100% a real... You deserve to be here. And yeah, let's, Janae, just give him a round of applause. So we're excited for you, Joe. All right, so on that note, Charrissa, you kind of told us a little bit about this, but I'd love to hear what tomorrow means to you. Janae, I've mentioned when you came on that you're going for an Olympic Trials qualifier, which is very exciting, but why this race? Why an Olympic Trials qualifier? Tell us about tomorrow, to you.
So tomorrow for me is kind of a why not. I got my first sub-3 last year, and I thought, that's it. I got a 2:59, barely squeaked through, and I was like, that's as far as I can go. And I met some really awesome girls this year that were also moms. They didn't run in college. I didn't run in college, and they were dreaming big. And it was so contagious to be around other dreamers that it made me want to. And it made me think, why not shoot for the stars? Why not have these huge dreams? So that's what tomorrow is for me, is just kind of a let's go see what's out there. Why are we putting a cap on our potential? Because that's our brains holding our bodies back from doing some really incredible things.
Such wise words there. All right, Charrissa, what would you say? What's tomorrow mean to you?
Well, I talked already about the ability to come back from my injury, which is always a big thing. And then the other big deal for me is that I'm going to try to go after a PR tomorrow, which I haven't done in quite some time. My PR is still grandma's, which was what I did about 2014. And I am turning 50 very soon in February. And so I kind of feel like this big thing of in my head, I keep thinking, well, I'm just going to get slower because I'm older, and I'm just going to get older and I can't do this. And so if I can go out there and continue to get better, it says a lot, I think, about age and what age is or is not. And it's not a barrier. So
thank you. I think that applies to a lot of people and is important to remember. Joe, what does it mean to you?
I've been thinking about this for a year, so it's been pretty big to me. I'm just going to try and enjoy it and savor it. And when I start counting down the miles, I'm just going to remind myself, kind of pull back and just say, enjoy it and to savor it. And don't try and get this run over so fast, but I just try and get back in that positive mindset that I just want to enjoy the day.
I think that's so good. And I'm going to be making sure you're thinking that way, because I'll be in your ear the whole way. No, not the whole way. I can't make it that way. Actually, 2 or 3 weeks ago, Rich Hunter, who is in charge of United in Stride, again, go check that out. He said to me, well, you can go the whole way if you want to. And I was like, no. I think I'm going to give that a pass this time around. All right, so I kind of want to wrap up here with some advice for everyone out there, for kind of reminding everyone out there of how strong they are, of what they are capable of. So Charrissa, I want to start with you. Having done the World Marathon Majors, which is, very impressive, something, many people would love to do, but maybe we'll never get the opportunity. You said about being in your 50s, thinking you were never an athlete. what would you like to remind the audience about how strong they are, about how they can do things that, maybe they once never thought possible, maybe they have felt restricted or something has blocked them in the past? What would you like to remind them?
Wow, that seems really heady. I think what I'd say that I've learned about myself and that I think everybody has the capability of is I'm really good at just putting one foot in front of the other. I guess that I've watched Frozen 2, not to plug Disney again, but that whole do the next right thing, that's what I'm really good at. And I think that everyone has that capacity. You don't have to think so far ahead, just what's the next thing in front of you. And you keep doing that and it'll actually add up to really big things.
That's really good. All right, Joe, tell us about what your impairment has taught you about your life and about just the way to approach life.
Just go out and try. How do you know you can't do something unless you just go out and try it? See where your limits are. See what you can do, what you can't do. And if you fail, then hopefully you learn something from it.
So good, so good. And Janae, you talked a minute ago about, kind of setting caps, setting limits for yourself. And I remember for so many years you having this 2:59 goal and, this is all I want. I'll be so... Was it that long? I don't know if I knew you that whole time, but, you talked about it. It was so clear that it was a passion of yours and that you just tried so many times, put your heart out there. And then you did it. And then suddenly you're at 249. And now you're going for a 2:45. So what would you like to tell people out there who, maybe when Charrissa was talking about a Boston qualifier, they might think, well, that's just not even in my realm. Or someone out there who's run a Boston qualifier and maybe, thinks of something that, well, I'm never going to break through at 3. I'm never going to do something. What would you like to remind people about something that may seem so impossible right now?
Well, if you're feeling that way, my advice is to go run with faster people, because that makes all the biggest difference to me. And then also, sorry, I'm going off topic of your question.
No, go for it.
But also to just be your best friend. Like, talk to yourself like you would talk to your best friend, and being encouraging. And I think that's something that really changed running for me. Is I went from talking to myself like negative, like, oh, you can't do this. Oh, you're slowing down again, to like, okay, how would I talk to my sister? Or how would I talk to my husband? I would be like encouraging them and focusing on the good things. So, yeah.
I think that is a really important thing, and something you can all take and apply tomorrow or in your races in the future, because that is what we do when we are in races. We tend to say to ourselves, like, stop slowing down. You're useless. I can't believe this is breaking. I'm breaking down already. Like, but if you talk to a best friend, a sister like that, or a friend, you would, if they would ditch you in a second, because they were, well, maybe not family, they'd kind of stuck with you, but friends would say, like, I'm not friends with you if you're going to talk to me that way, so why talk to yourselves that way? So that's really good advice from Janae there. All right, so can we give Joe and all the other people who are doing their first time marathons, what would be your advice to them going into a first marathon? Janae?
Start eating and drinking before you think you need to. So that's
good
helped
advice.
me a lot.
Yes.
I start eating at the 5K. I get out that goo and I start eating it. So, yeah.
I just want to add to that also the other end of it, that when you get to 20 miles or 21, 22, sometimes it feels like, I just don't want to eat anything. I'm just going to skip it. But if you skip it, it will come back to bite you in those final few miles. So very important what Janae said. Also remember the other end of where you're starting to ease up. If you've planned to take your gel, maybe if it was mile 24, 25, you can skip it. But before that, take it. All right, Charrissa, what would you say?
Run the mile you're in. So I feel like a lot of times we worry early on, like, oh my gosh, this niggle in my calf, what's it going to feel like at 20? Or I'm feeling tired now, what's it going to feel like then? Just don't even waste your energy. Can I run now? Am I in pain now? No, just keep running. Run that mile.
So good. All right, I just want to take a moment. I want everyone to give yourselves a round of applause. If you are running tomorrow, you've worked hard, you are here right now, you are enjoying this CIM Expo, and you're going to give it your best tomorrow. I want you guys to applaud if you feel awkward applauding yourselves, you can applaud the person next to you. But I want everyone who's running tomorrow to give yourselves a round of applause, because you have worked so hard to be here right now. And this is so exciting that you get to be a part of this. So we're just going to open up if anyone has any questions for any of the guests up here. Don't be shy. I know it is scary to ask a question, especially the first one. So, and if you don't pick one, Andrew, you were going to have to ask the first question, so you got off the hook there.
A question for Joe. I'm curious about if dogs play a role in your training at all, or do they have that capacity?
What do you mean?
And sight dogs or sight aid.
Oh, no. I don't have a dog. I don't plan on getting a guide.
Do they do that? Do they have dogs trained for that reason?
I have heard of other people that run with a dog, and then they relay the dog so their dogs don't get so tired, and they do like 8 or 9 miles and switch off and things like that. But I don't have experience, or I haven't talked to anyone. I just heard about it.
Thank you.
Well, it looks like it is you now, so think of a question.
You put me on the spot.
Oh, you were saved.
No, I was saved. I'll be ready.
Hi, I have a question about headphones. Whenever I run at home, I love running to music, but I saw on the website it says it strongly discourages headphones. I just wondering what you guys' thoughts on them, on listening to music.
Well, I guess, do you want my answer as well, or just theirs? Mine? When I ran as an elite, I very, very, very rarely listened to music or podcasts because I felt like I had to be focusing the whole time. And I still kind of believe that if you really are working towards something, you should have at least a few days a week without a hard day. Without a hard day. Your hard day should be no music, no podcast, because you need to hear those the thoughts that are telling you're no good. That self-doubt, you need to be able to hear it so that when it comes out on race day, or when you don't have it, you know what to say back, because you know that your voice says, oh, you're just useless, or whatever it is that yours says to you. You know to say, well, I'm not useless. I'm actually out here doing this right now, that I could be sitting on my couch. So I personally feel like people should have at least 1 to 2 days a week without, preferably your hard day and your long run day. And I personally think race day should be mostly without music and podcasts, because you're kind of tuning out the amazing atmosphere. There's so much energy in the crowd, so you can take it in and use it. So I would say, if you can, use at least parts of it. Or I didn't know CIM discourages it totally, but I kind of like that myself. But yeah.
Can I say something too? Yeah. I actually did the 20-mile CIM training race with no headphones, and I used to listen to music and whatever, but it just took it to a whole new level. Like, I got to go so much deeper into it. The last 4 miles, I really had to dig deep, and it just made for a whole fuller experience. So since that point, that was 4 weeks ago, I started doing at least 2 runs a week where I didn't listen to anything, and I love those runs most. So I'm going to do at least the first 20 miles tomorrow without, and for me, it just took it to a whole new level.
So good. I think pretty common, so give it a try. Do you want to add anything, either of you? No? Okay. I think we have...
So you've all mentioned about coming back from injury and the sense of accomplishment that you had in getting through that and getting to the next race. But what I'm finding is the most difficult part about overcoming an injury is the emotional aspect of it. So I don't know if you guys have any tips about what you did to keep your head on as you're working through recovery.
For me, I think that it's important to feel what you need to feel. So if that means you're crying in your room for 3 days and watching every episode of Parenthood, do it. Like, you need to feel what you need to feel. And then from there, what I did was I focused my extra time on a different passion. And I tried to build that up while I couldn't run. I wanted to still have me time that was just focused on me and to help me get through it. And there's still passions that I like to do, but once I'm able to run again, they kind of fall off again. But that's okay.
I'd like to think that while I'm injured, I have this great focus on the future and I'm totally optimistic about it. But my husband is sitting right here and I think he would say that I was lying. So absolutely, there are dark days. I'm sure Derek has heard me say, I'm never going to run again. I'm never going to run. I'm never going to be the same runner I used to be. And, all these catastrophic thoughts. I think despite that, I'm just really focused on, okay, well, what can I do right now? What is realistic right now for me to do? What's a realistic goal for me this week? Whether it's resting, whether it's going for a walk, whether it's, and just continuing to build from there and not getting ahead of myself on the injury. And the whole thing, and this is the hardest thing, is believing that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, that it will come to an end, and that it's really hard in the dark days. But that's the key thing, is just keep plugging away, and eventually you'll look back and you'll be like, wow, like nowadays I feel like that thing was so long ago and so small and so minor, and it was all consuming at the time.
I just want to add quickly that I do actually have on my website, for anyone who needs it, hopefully not many people do, but an injury series, and 3 of the episodes focus on the emotional aspect, because I think that is key, very important. So, anyone else?
Yeah, so I just second that. That what can I do that day? So when I sprained my ankle, I was out 3 weeks and then ramp up for another 3 weeks and whatever. But I could do my core, so I just developed a really strong core, doing lots of planks and leg lifts and whatever I could do that day. So.
Hi, this is Vivek here. I have a question. So this is going to be my second marathon, and the question is, what should be an ideal average training mile per week to complete the marathon completely? I mean, I've been doing 30 to 35 miles per week, and I had this Vegas marathon, the first marathon, and during the last 5 miles, I had this very feeling of legs getting cramped, and I thought, if I stop after 21 mile, I wouldn't be able to complete. So I just kept on running, and after the run was complete, I felt cramping in my legs. So I guess I think that I'm short on the training miles. And the other question, a follow-up question is that what should I do to avoid the leg cramps?
Do you mind if I answer this one? Usually with leg cramps, people often think, always think it's electrolytes, I've run out of salts. And yes, sometimes it is that. But actually the majority of the time when people get cramps, like particularly debilitating ones that really take you out, it's that you have kind of pushed your body past the point it's gone to before. So I wouldn't say it's miles per week you need to improve. It's going to be those long runs. You need to maybe get a bit faster towards the end. Practice, on your 20 milers, the last 5 miles picking up faster and faster, and, getting used to that, or doing some hard intervals that are a lot faster than your race pace, because there's so many different elements that go into it, but it comes down to the fact, if you cramp like that you have basically gone too fast for what your body can handle. So I would suggest starting out a bit slower. And then, you want to, like you've probably heard people say, you want to get to the 20-mile mark as kind of a long run, and then you can go fast rather than be hanging on. And if you're hanging on, that means you've probably gone a little bit too fast too early. So
don't worry about tomorrow. I'd rather be a little bit undertrained than anything overtrained. So you'll be great.
So for each of you, as you know, the running community is one big happy family. So what's one positive thing that you feel like you contribute to the running community?
I like to think I say too much, which hopefully brings people at ease. Especially being British, I think that's kind of the opposite of what you expect. So me sharing my inner craziness allows other people to feel like they're not the only one going through that. That's what I hope.
I hope, my goal is to add a little optimism to people's mornings and days. That's my goal, so.
I think I'm like kind of an average Joe, not to use your name, but an average Joe. And so I feel like when I do things, people get inspired to do them. My theory is they think, she can do it, I could do it too. So like a number of my friends now are trying to do the World Marathon Majors and that kind of thing. So I guess just average person going out there and working hard and getting things done.
Maybe a little of a humor and trying to keep that positive environment when I'm talking to someone or anyone around the race. If I have something that I think is funny, I'll just share it to whoever's around me.
So I'm waiting for plenty of that tomorrow then, yeah? You've just lined yourself up there. I'd love for you guys to think about that for yourself. What do you want to give out to the world? I mean, obviously I can't ask all of you, but think about it, because it's always fun to think about the questions that podcast hosts ask their guests. So what you would say. So anything else? Anyone else? That was quite a few questions for a podcast. I'm quite impressed. Okay. Well, thank you so much for watching. Those of you who have come kind of halfway through, if you do want to listen to this, it will be available on my podcast in a week or so. I want to thank my guests here for just sharing their struggles, sharing their high moments, just being just the wonderful people that they are. I wish every one of you who is racing tomorrow the best of luck. And if you are not running, you probably will run next year. Because it's very inspiring. So enjoy and take it in. Oh, let's kind of wrap up finally with one thing to tell them about running tomorrow. What's your final thing you want to say to them? Like what I say, what would you tell yourself on the start line? What do you want to tell them?
Smile when it hurts, because when you smile, it releases feel-good endorphins, or I don't know what hormone it is. So smile when it hurts.
I guess it's run with gratitude. So even if the weather isn't great tomorrow, we get to do this. No one's making us do this. So if I'm going to be out there, I might as well be grateful to be out there.
Enjoy it and celebrate it. We put in so much time and effort and money and training miles and everything. So enjoy it.
All right. Well, thank you guys, and enjoy exactly that. Enjoy tomorrow. My friends, if you have a minute and you could leave a review on your favorite podcast player, Apple Podcasts, aka iTunes, Stitcher, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Spotify, or whatever else podcast player you use to listen to this podcast, or if you would subscribe to this podcast, you will help me get out in front of new runners to make our tribe even bigger and even better. It might not seem like you as one person can make a difference, but really it helps a lot. And it shows me you appreciate the hard work I put in for those. Thank you so much. Now that was pretty special, right? I think so. I mean, Joe's story is just stands out on its own. And, he's showed such courage, such bravery. I am recording this after the race. We did do that. I did the half marathon with him, and then Aaron took over for half a marathon, and I joined him actually for about 800 meters towards the finish, ran with him. He was looking so strong. I didn't dare go through the finish line. I didn't want to be accused of trying to cheat a time. So I just jumped out again quickly. And there was quite a lot of kids running alongside the family. CIM is a lot more of a relaxed feeling. Not that I'm encouraging people to jump in and out of races. I'm probably going to get told off for this, but for me, I did technically have a bib. I was a guide for Joe. But anyway, we had a wonderful experience. It was just so special to me to, actually, let me just say first, before I go into more detail about that, I really loved Janae's answers. Janae did not run the 2:44 she was hoping for, but she still had a great race. She's had a wonderful year of running, and I'm really happy for her for what she's managed to accomplish. So hopefully you enjoyed learning more about her. And Charrissa, she also ran well. She, is someone that I am really enjoying getting to know, and I hope you enjoyed getting to know her as well. All right, so back to myself and Joe. If you want to sign off for the week, you can find links in the show notes at tinamuir.com/episode 164. Tomorrow you will be hearing from Max King and James McCurdy in my second live show. So now I'm just going to take a few minutes to talk about my experience with Joe. If you want to sign out, I'll see you tomorrow. All right. So yes, I did this guiding. It took us about 2.5 hours. No, probably 2 hours, 19 minutes. We went through the half in, and I just kept going a little bit longer. It was just a wonderful experience for me, just life-changing this whole weekend. I'm recording this in my hotel room the day after the California International Marathon. The whole weekend for me was just incredible. I got to attend many events at the US Association of Blind Athletes, and every time it brought tears to my eyes, just seeing how inspiring these people were, what they'd been through, what they'd overcome, the things that they'd managed to accomplish that I can't even imagine ever doing myself, let alone, doing it without my sight, or, at least partial sight. And there was so many moments where I just thought, wow,
you need some inspiration, get involved with something like this. The guiding itself was just a wonderful experience. Everyone was so connected. We had this tent before the race that we were all in. I got to know so many of the guides, so many of the athletes themselves, just wonderful, genuine, loving people. And if you get the opportunity to do something like this, I mentioned in the episode about unitedinstride.com, you can go sign yourself up. Put in your city, even if there's someone not there now, someone may sign up in the future, and then they've got like a person who can maybe connect them with some other people, even if you're not available at that moment. Or, if there's a specific race that you love to go to and you're going to attend, but maybe it's shortly after a race and you don't really want to, race hard, you could find someone that you could guide for. As you heard with this example, I did the halfway point, so it doesn't necessarily have to be a whole marathon, but it doesn't even have to be a marathon. It could be 5Ks, it could be 10Ks, and most important of all, these visually impaired athletes, to get to these races, they have to train, right? And if they don't have a guide to train with, then that leaves very limiting options. You heard Joe talking about doing a 2-mile loop that he knew really well. But if you can give anything, like once a month, twice a month, once every few months to run with someone, it can make a massive difference. And I promise you, it is a life-changing thing to just give back, to do something for someone else. It was truly one of the most memorable moments of my life for what I knew how much it meant to Joe. I knew how much it meant to this community that I was here and bringing attention to, blind athletes and what they stand for. So being a part of their marathon championships, seeing their awards afterwards, and it changed me, my friends. I really feel different. I feel like I am addicted to this. Scott Jurek was also, I spent a lot of time with him this weekend. We were both guides for the weekend, and we were both, Scott and I were staying in the same hotel, so we would go back and forth to the events together. And, hearing him talk about how much it's changed him, he makes sure he does, I think these are the only events he does now on the road are just guiding for other people. Scott did guide the whole marathon on Sunday, and as he was coming in, he was struggling a little bit. Like he really was. I saw him afterwards and he was having a bit of a rough day. And don't worry, we already are thinking about a podcast, although Scott would prefer a live podcast in potentially St. Louis. So if you live in St. Louis, or you can get to St. Louis, Scott is thinking about coming to visit and doing a live show while he is there. So keep that in mind. I will keep you posted on that. But yes, so for him, he said that just the giving back is addicting and he wants to do more and more on this. And the people there are just, like I've said, I just can't put it into words. So special. And I look forward to many more memories with them. So please go to unitedinstride.com to sign yourself up to do it. Even if you only do it once, it would be amazing. You have to create a profile for yourself. If you don't create a profile, there's nothing, they can't find you. And once you've created a profile, you have to kind of go out and seek, if you are looking for someone, you have to go out and seek them because maybe they've been registered on the site for a long time and they don't know a new person has come in from their city. So reach out to someone who you see in your city if you see someone, or if not, you can just kind of, check back regularly or maybe pick up a race, like I said. All right. That is enough from me. Tomorrow, as I said, you're going to hear from Max King and James McCurdy for the second live show. Such a fun conversation. It really took maybe not a dark turn, but a funny turn towards the end. I've never laughed so much in a live show, so this is a really great one. Thank you so much for listening. I'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks for listening to the Running for Real podcast. Be sure to check out tinamuir.com for show notes and even more helpful running information.